Lucas looked ready to explode. For a second, I honestly thought he might attack me right there inside Victor's office. Instead, he pointed at me with shaking hands. "This isn't over." I smiled slightly. "It actually is." Victor pressed a button on his desk. 2 security guards entered immediately. "Escort Mr. Lucas Vale out of the building," Victor said coldly. "His executive privileges are revoked." Lucas stared at his father in disbelief. "You're choosing him over me?" Victor's expression never changed. "I'm choosing the son who didn't plan murder." The guards stepped closer. Lucas yanked his arm away angrily before storming toward the door. But before leaving, he turned toward me one final time. "You think you won because you know one little secret?" he hissed. "You have no idea what kind of world you're standing in." Then he left. Silence filled the office. Victor sat back down slowly. "He won't forgive this," he said calmly. "I'm counting on it." That earned me another strange look. "You really have changed." I shrugged lightly. Near-death experiences build character. Not technically a lie. Victor slid another folder toward me. "This contains access to several offshore accounts and emergency company assets. I was planning to give them to you years later." I frowned slightly. "Why now?" "Because today you finally behaved like a Vale." Coming from him, that was practically emotional affection. I accepted the folder carefully. Then Victor leaned forward slightly. "One more thing," he said quietly. "Be careful with Isabella. She's not exactly my biggest concern anymore. She should be." Something in his tone made me pause. "What do you mean?" Victor hesitated for the first time since I met him. "Her family has connections." "What kind of connections?" "The kind powerful people pretend doesn't exist." "Interesting. Very interesting." After leaving the office, I spent the next week cleaning house. Literally and financially. Every account tied to Adrian's name got reviewed personally. Every suspicious employee removed. Every hidden contract investigated. And throughout all of it, Isabella kept calling. 32 missed calls. 17 text messages. 2 crying voicemails. I ignored every single one. Meanwhile, Celine became my closest ally surprisingly fast. She sat across from me inside her office one evening while reviewing legal documents. "You know," she said carefully, "before this week, I genuinely thought you'd marry Isabella even if she stabbed you. She probably planned to." Celine laughed despite herself. God, she was beautiful when she laughed. Simple black dress. Dark red hair tied loosely behind her shoulders. Sharp, intelligent eyes. Unlike Isabella, nothing about Celine felt fake. She noticed me staring and raised an eyebrow. "What?" "I'm realizing original Adrian was blind." "Original Adrian?" I immediately corrected myself. "I mean old me. Smooth. Very smooth." Thankfully, she just shook her head. "Well, old you was an idiot." "Agreed." Her expression softened slightly. "You know," she said quietly, "when I heard about the engagement party, I was worried about you. That makes one person." "That's not true." I leaned back in my chair carefully. "You loved him, didn't you?" Her cheeks turned slightly pink. "Who?" "Adrian." Celine looked down at the papers silently for several seconds, then finally nodded. "For years." Damn. Even knowing it from the novel felt different hearing it directly. "Why never say anything?" She smiled sadly. "Because every time you looked at Isabella, it felt like you already decided your future." That hit harder than expected. Maybe because in my first life I ignored good people too while chasing the wrong woman. Funny how patterns repeat. Before I could answer, my phone suddenly rang. Unknown number. Again. I answered carefully. "Hello." Heavy breathing answered first. Then a familiar voice. "You ruined everything." "Lucas." I smiled faintly. "You sound stressed. You think father will protect you forever?" "I think you're running out of options. You should have died quietly." There it was. No more pretending.
"No," he replied calmly.
"I already did that once." Silence. "What?" "Nothing. Continue threatening me. You have no idea what's coming." The call ended. Celine looked concerned immediately. That sounded serious. It probably is. You need security. I have security. Professional security, she corrected. Fair point. That night, I returned to the mansion under heavy rain. The house felt strangely empty despite its size. Maybe because none of Adrian's relationships were real. Maybe because loneliness follows people between worlds. I poured whiskey and sat near the fireplace quietly. Then the doorbell rang. At midnight. Fantastic. I checked security cameras first, and froze slightly. Isabella stood outside the gate, completely soaked from the rain. Of course she did. I considered ignoring her. Instead, curiosity won. I opened the front door slowly. She looked terrible. Mascara ruined. Hair wet. Eyes swollen from crying. For the first time since meeting her, she looked human instead of perfect. Please, she whispered. I didn't know where else to go. I crossed my arms. Where's Lucas? He disappeared. Interesting. He took money, she continued shakily. A lot of money. And now people are looking for him. Ah, now the deeper plot appears. I stepped aside reluctantly. 5 minutes. She entered slowly while hugging herself for warmth. I handed her a towel silently. Thank you. Start talking. Isabella sat on the couch carefully. There are people involved in this beyond Lucas. I figured. Her eyes widened slightly. You believe me? I believe greedy people rarely work alone. She looked exhausted. Lucas owed money, she admitted quietly. Massive amounts. Gambling debts. He got involved with dangerous investors. And the poisoning plan? Her face turned pale. They pressured him. They said if you died after the charity banquet, the company transition would happen smoothly. And you agreed. Tears filled her eyes again. I was stupid. Yes. She flinched slightly. Good. Actions should hurt. But I never wanted you dead, she whispered.
He stared at her silently.
Then asked the real question. Why come here? Because they're angry now, she admitted. Lucas vanished with part of their money. And they think you know where he is. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Transmigrating into a revenge novel apparently included bonus mafia content. Before I could respond, every light in the mansion suddenly shut off. Darkness swallowed the room instantly. My instincts screamed danger. I grabbed Isabella's wrist and pulled her down behind the couch just as glass exploded across the living room. Gunshots. 3 rapid shots shattered the windows. Isabella screamed quietly. I pulled her lower. Stay down. Another shot blasted through the fireplace. Someone outside shouted, Search the house. Wonderful. Just wonderful. I crawled carefully toward the desk drawer near the hallway. Thankfully, rich paranoid men own weapons. I grabbed Adrian's handgun and checked the magazine quickly. Loaded. Good. Footsteps approached outside. Multiple people. Professional enough to spread out. Not professional enough to stay silent. I motioned Isabella toward the kitchen exit. She shook violently.
I'm scared.
So am I. That surprised her. But courage isn't lack of fear. It's functioning despite it. The back door suddenly burst open. A masked man entered holding a pistol. I fired first. The shot slammed into his shoulder, spinning him backward with a scream. Chaos erupted instantly. More shouting outside. More footsteps. I grabbed Isabella and moved upstairs fast. Call the police, I ordered. My phone. Use mine. She fumbled desperately while I locked the upstairs hallway doors. Another gunshot shattered wood downstairs. These people really wanted me dead. Funny. So did half the characters in the novel. But unlike original Adrian, I wasn't following the script anymore. The mansion alarms finally activated loudly across the property. Good. That would force them to move fast. A voice shouted downstairs. Find Vale. I moved toward the balcony carefully and checked outside. 3 armed men. Black SUV near the gates. No sign of Lucas. One attacker spotted me immediately. Gunfire erupted again. I ducked back inside as bullets shattered the balcony doors. Police are coming, Isabella cried. Then we survive 5 minutes. Simple in theory, complicated in practice. The attackers started upstairs. Slowly, methodically, I checked remaining bullets. 6 left. Fantastic odds. Isabella suddenly grabbed my sleeve. They'll kill us. I looked directly into her terrified eyes. No, I said calmly. Not tonight. Because I already lost one life to betrayal. And there was no universe where I intended to lose another. The footsteps reached the 2nd floor. Closer, closer. Then, sirens exploded outside. The attackers immediately started retreating. I exhaled slowly for the first time in minutes. One final gunshot echoed downstairs before tires screeched outside the mansion. Then silence returned. Isabella collapsed onto the floor crying. Meanwhile, I stood motionless near the shattered balcony doors while cold rain blew into the hallway. And for the first time since entering this world, I realized something terrifying. The novel's original story was completely broken now, which meant I no longer knew what happened next. And that made every person around me dangerous. The police swarmed the mansion for nearly 2 hours. Officers searched the grounds while paramedics treated the wounded gunman outside. Apparently the idiot survived my shot. Unfortunately, I sat inside the destroyed living room answering questions while detectives photographed bullet holes and shattered glass. Across from me, Isabella sat wrapped in a blanket, trembling nonstop. One detective looked between us carefully. You believe the attackers were connected to Lucas Vale? I know they were, I answered calmly. Any proof? Only common sense. The detective sighed. Mr. Vale, someone tried to kill you tonight. We need more than assumptions. I almost laughed. If only he knew this was technically my 2nd assassination attempt across 2 different lives. Eventually, the officers left 2 patrol cars outside the mansion and promised extra protection. The second the front door closed, silence returned. Rain still hammered against the windows. I poured myself another whiskey. Isabella watched me carefully. How are you so calm? I'm not calm. You look calm. That's because panicking never solved anything. She lowered her eyes quietly. You hate me, don't you? I took a slow sip before answering. Yes. The honesty clearly hurt her more than yelling would have. But, I continued quietly, I don't want you dead. Tears welled in her eyes again. God, at this rate the mansion might flood before morning. You should stay here tonight, I said finally. Her head snapped up. Really? Don't misunderstand. I'm not forgiving you. I just doubt those men are finished. She nodded quickly. I understand. No, she really didn't. Around 3 a.m., after making sure every security system worked, I finally went upstairs. Sleep didn't come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, memories mixed together. My first life, the car crash, Claire's betrayal, then Adrian's memories blended into mine. Poisoned wine, loneliness, hatred. I woke up around sunrise feeling exhausted, and immediately sensed something was wrong. The mansion was too quiet. I grabbed the handgun from the bedside drawer and moved downstairs carefully. Empty living room, empty kitchen. Then I noticed the note sitting beside the coffee machine. I'm sorry for everything. They contacted me this morning. They said they'll stop targeting you if I come alone. Don't follow me. Isabella. I stared at the note for 3 full seconds, then muttered, stupid woman. My phone rang instantly. Unknown number again. I answered coldly. Where is she? A deep male voice laughed softly. Straight to business. I like that. Who are you? You may call me Mr. Graves. Definitely fake. Where's Isabella? Safe. For now. I walked toward the garage, already grabbing my car keys. If you hurt her, you misunderstand the situation, Mr. Vale. Isabella is not important. You are. I paused. Interesting. What do you want? Your cooperation. With Vale Industries. There it was. This was never just family betrayal. It was corporate takeover.
I'm listening.
No police. No father. Come alone tonight and perhaps everyone survives. The call ended. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. An hour later, I arrived at Celine's office and explained everything. She looked horrified. You're not actually going alone, right? Yes. Adrian, that's insane. Probably. She stood and started pacing angrily. These people sent armed men to your house. And now they have Isabella. Celine stopped suddenly. You still care about her. I frowned. That's not. You do, she interrupted softly. Even after everything. I leaned back silently. Maybe she was right. Not romantically, but I understood betrayal better than anyone. And I knew what fear looked like. She made terrible choices, I said quietly. But nobody deserves whatever those people are planning. Celine studied me for a moment before sighing. Fine. If you're doing this, you're not doing it alone. I don't need a babysitter. You need a lawyer smart enough to stop you from becoming a corpse. Fair point. By evening, we tracked the call location to an abandoned shipping warehouse near the docks. Very cliché villain location. I parked 2 streets away. Celine grabbed my arm before I exited the car. If things go bad, leave immediately. That's comforting. I'm serious. I looked at her carefully. She genuinely looked terrified for me. Not for money. Not for status. For me. That realization hit harder than expected. Celine. What? Thanks. Her expression softened slightly. Just come back alive, idiot. I entered the warehouse alone. Dark interior. Metal containers everywhere. Footsteps echoed faintly. Then applause sounded slowly from above. A tall man in a gray coat stepped onto the metal walkway overlooking the warehouse floor. Silver hair. Cold smile. Expensive watch. Definitely rich psychopath energy. Adrian Vale, he said smoothly. You're far more interesting than your brother. I assume you're Mr. Graves. One of many names. Of course. Men like him always treated life like theater. Where's Isabella? He gestured casually. 2 armed guards dragged her forward from behind a container. Bruised but alive. She looked terrified when she saw me. Adrian, don't. One guard shoved her silent. My hands clenched instantly. Mr. Graves noticed. Ah, so there is emotional attachment after all. Get to the point. He smiled faintly. Very well. Lucas owed my organization nearly $40 million. $40 million. Impressive stupidity. We financed several operations through him inside Vale Industries. Graves continued. Then suddenly you changed. I said nothing, because technically he wasn't wrong. The old Adrian Vale was predictable, he said calmly. Emotional. Weak. Easy to manipulate. But now, his eyes narrowed slightly. You're someone else entirely. Cold spread through my chest. Careful. Very careful. What exactly are you implying? Grave smiled. Nothing supernatural. Simply that trauma appears to have improved you. Good save. For a second, I thought he somehow knew the truth. He descended the stairs slowly. Here is my offer. Transfer controlling shares of Vale Industries quietly, and everyone walks away alive. And if I refuse? He looked genuinely amused. Then eventually your father dies. Your lawyer dies. Your lovely assistant dies. Perhaps even the fiancée who betrayed you dies first. I stared at him silently, then laughed softly. That clearly surprised everyone. You know, I said calmly, in my first life, men like you terrified me. First life. Damn it. I corrected instantly. First phase of my life. Smooth recovery. Hopefully. Graves tilted his head curiously. But now, I smiled coldly. Now I'm tired of evil people thinking they own the world. Before he could respond, warehouse doors exploded open. Gunfire erupted instantly. Men screamed. Chaos everywhere. Celine burst in wearing a bulletproof vest beside heavily armed security teams. Behind them walked Victor Vale himself, looking furious enough to kill somebody barehanded.
Graves cursed sharply.
You brought backup. I smirked slightly. No. I brought family issues. Victor's men opened fire across the warehouse while Graves' guards returned shots. I sprinted toward Isabella during the chaos. One guard aimed at me. I tackled him behind a crate as bullets shattered metal nearby. The gun slid loose. I grabbed it first. The man reached for a knife. I shot him in the leg instantly. He screamed. "Stay down," I warned coldly. I reached Isabella moments later and cut her restraints quickly. "You okay?" She nodded shakily. Then suddenly another gunshot echoed. Victor staggered backward upstairs, clutching his shoulder. Celine screamed. Graves smiled darkly while lowering his pistol. "Well," he said calmly, "this just became personal." And in that exact moment, I realized the real war had finally begun. If the story made you feel something, leave a like. Not every story is meant to comfort you. Some are meant to follow you. And if this one stays with you, subscribe, because the next one goes even deeper.